You may proceed.
Thank you. Please tell the members of the jury how you are employed.
I am employed with the Orange County Sheriff's Office as a detective for the Domestic Crimes Unit.
How were you employed back in July of 2008?
I was employed as a detective in the Domestic Violence Unit.
Same thing?
Somewhat, yes.
Okay. How long have you been with the Orange County Sheriff?
Approximately 7.5 years.
In July of 2008, were you asked to assist another detective by the name of Yuri Melich in collecting some items from the Anthony family at 4937 Hope Spring Drive?
Yes.
Did the collection of these items take place on July 16th of 2008?
Yes.
What items were you asked to collect?
Specifically a vehicle, a laptop computer, and several miscellaneous items.
All right. The vehicle that you were asked to collect, can you describe this for us?
It was a white Pontiac Sunfire.
Okay. And how did you achieve that collection?
Can you elaborate or?
You didn't go drive it back to the sheriff's office, I take it. There had to be
No.
some other way that it got from one place to another.
Correction. Yes, it was towed to the forensics lab at the sheriff's office.
Okay. Towed from the address on Hope Spring?
Yes.
Okay. Prior to its towing, did you do anything to secure it?
I sealed the vehicle,
How?
the doors, and the trunk
How did you seal
with
them?
evidence tape.
Okay. Did you open the doors or the trunk in any way prior to your sealing it?
No.
Did you remove any items from the vehicle prior to your sealing it?
No.
All right, you indicated that the car was towed. Did you follow the tow truck from Hope Spring Drive to any particular location?
Yes, I did.
Tell us what happened.
The wrecker arrived at the residence, and it was towed to the Orange County Sheriff's Office Forensics Bay, and I followed the tow truck the entire way.
Okay. Did you turn over the vehicle at that point to another member of the Orange County Sheriff's Office?
Yes, I did.
Who would that have been?
That would be crime scene investigator Gerardo Bloisy.
You had mentioned that you were also given some items while you were at the residence.
That's correct.
Is that correct? Who gave you these items?
Cindy Anthony.
Okay. Were these items provided to you in any sort of container?
Yes, several of the items were presented to me in a blue plastic crate.
All right. Would those items have included a doll,
Yes.
a Dora backpack,
Yes.
a child's toothbrush,
Yes.
a black leather bag,
Yes.
various papers,
Yes.
the blue plastic crate you mentioned,
Yes.
and plastic clothes hangers?
Yes.
Okay. During the first part of your testimony, you mentioned a laptop computer.
Yes, I did.
Okay. How did you receive the laptop?
Cindy Anthony gave me the laptop computer.
Okay. Was it plugged in at some point when you were there, or was it handed to you unplugged and off?
It was handed to me unplugged and off to my recollection.
Okay. Did you do anything to try to turn it on or inspect the contents of it in any way?
No, I did not.
Okay. You fill out a property form when you receive these items, correct?
Yes, I did.
Right. On that property form, did you record the type of computer as well as the serial number?
I believe so. I would have to refer to my report to confirm.
All right. Your Honor, at this point, may I approach the witness
You may.
to refresh your recollection as to the details? Can you tell us the type of laptop and the serial number after reviewing
Yes,
the paperwork that you prepared in connection with the seizure of these items?
Yes, it was a compact laptop computer, and according to my property form, the serial number is CND6430RKH.
Would you have recorded that serial number at the time that you collected the item from Mrs. Anthony, or when you got it to the forensics or to someone else at the sheriff's office?
No, I recorded that actually at the Anthony residence.
What did you do with these items once you returned with the car at forensics? What did you do with the other items that were provided to you?
I provided the other items to the crime scene investigator, Gerardo Bloisy, except for the compact laptop computer and the power cord.
Who did those go to?
They were turned over to Detective Sandy Kahn with the Computer Crimes Unit.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. That's all the questions I have for the witness, Your Honor.
Cross-examination?
Good day, Ms. Beasley.
Hi.
How are you?
Good, and you?
When you went to the Hope Springs Drive address, had you been made aware of all the activities or some of the activities that had occurred there the night before?
Can you be more specific?
Well, had you talked to Detective Bellich?
As far as details regarding this, no, I had not.
You didn't just go to this place in the blind, did you? I mean, you knew there had been an investigation going on the entire night before, didn't you?
No, sir.
You knew nothing?
I didn't say I knew nothing. Can you be more specific as
You
to?
tell me what you knew before you went there about this case.
I knew that there was an active initial investigation regarding a missing child.
And so you were dispatched to go and retrieve a car,
I was
among other things.
I was requested to respond to the Anthony's residence to collect certain
I'm
items.
over here. I'm over here. Look,
Mr. Mason, all she needs to do is answer your questions. Go ahead, ma'am.
you were dispatched to get the car and miscellaneous other items.
Yes, I was requested to respond to the Anthony's residence to pick up several items.
And when you got to the car, you were to supervise the towing of it?
What do you mean by supervise?
Well, are you there as the official representing the sheriff to see who was going to come and get the car and preserve the chain of custody of it?
I was the individual sent to collect the car, so it would have been my job to seal the car and oversee that it was actually brought to the sheriff's office.
And to seal it.
Correct.
And when you say to seal it, did you take tape and put it all around the doors?
No, when we seal a car, you're putting a small piece of evidence tape across each opening of the vehicle, such as the doors or the truck.
Each opening.
Yes,
That included the trunk.
that did include the trunk.
And you personally did it.
Yes,
And you didn't smell any odor from the trunk of that car, did you?
can you phrase that as a question?
That is a question, ma'am. You did not smell any odor from the trunk of that car, did you?
I don't recall if I did or not that day.
And this computer that you were handed by Miss Cindy Anthony,
Yes,
did you even open it to see if it had any battery life or anything like that in it?
no, I did not,
So it was completely down.
to my knowledge.
You never did anything else with it then yourself?
No,
Turn it over to Ms. Kahn, is that you said?
that is correct.
Other than the items that you've just told us about, told Ms. Jane Burdick about the miscellaneous items you recovered, and you're sealing all of the openings of the car, were you involved in any other aspect of this case?
Such as,
Did you tell me? You're the detective. Were you involved in anything else in this case?
I was requested to go and and collect these items and bring them back to the sheriff's office. That was my involvement in this case.
So the simple answer is no, sir, Mr. Mason, I was not.
No, sir, I was not.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. I have no further questions.
No redirect.
Okay. Thank you, Detective. You may be excused, ma'am. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the jury, now the time is approximately 7 minutes to the hour of noon. We're going to recess for lunch until 1:30. Your lunch variety will probably change next week. We will have to take you down to another floor to give you more room. Trying to arrange for a buffet to be brought in, okay? All right. All right, we'll be in recess. Please remember all of my previous admonitions. Assistant State Attorneys, both sides ready to proceed.
Very end.
What's up? I just turned it on.
Okay. I'm not certain, but I reasonably believe from who I see out there that the state's about to want to get into the dog issues. And we have the Harris case as well as your order. We have not been provided with any discovery revealing the existence of field performance logs showing failure rates that the Supreme Court says is mandatory and essential. So I thought we'd raise that issue now. I don't know how you want to handle it, or how they want to handle it with witnesses. I'm sure they have some that can testify without that, but comes to dogs, comes the Harris case.
Ms. Burdick?
Well, I disagree with Mr. Mason's assessment of what the requirements are under the case issued recently by the Florida Supreme Court. I have them here in the event that we get that far. I'm not thinking that we will get to these witnesses today. What we're going to do in advance of that is have crime scene technicians laying the predicate for some of the evidence that the expert witnesses who will be called tomorrow are going to testify to. So we need to handle all of that before we get to the cadaver dog issues. So they were here in an abundance of caution so that there's not really any dead time with this jury, as the court has encouraged us to be mindful of their circumstance. But I intend to have at least 4 or 5 witnesses prior to getting to that issue.
Okay. All right, let's return to jury. You may proceed.
Thank you. How are you employed, ma'am?
I'm with the Orange County Sheriff's Office,
How long have you worked for the sheriff's office?
10 years.
Apparently, there are certain radio frequencies that may occur from time to time that causes that, so let's continue.
I'm sorry, ma'am, you worked for the sheriff's office for 10 years?
Yes, ma'am.
Back in July of 2008, what was your assignment with the Orange County Sheriff?
I worked in the missing persons unit.
Okay, in what capacity?
I was a missing persons investigator.
What job duties does a missing persons investigator have?
We look for missing runaways, missing people, children, adults, anything that has to do with a missing person going amber, anything like that.
Okay. Now, are you a sworn law enforcement officer?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Are you an individual within the missing persons unit who would assist detectives and other law enforcement officers in locating and doing background work regarding missing persons?
Yes, ma'am.
In July of 2008, in connection with the employment that you've just described, did you have an occasion to meet with Mr. George Anthony?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did you accompany, or did Mr. Anthony accompany you to a location off of Narcoossee Road?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Can you tell the members of the jury when that took place?
That was when Caylee was reported missing, and I was told by Corporal Yuri Mellish to go with them to, that location is Johnson's Towing,
Okay.
to recover a trash bag.
All right. Do you recall, or do the records of the Orange County Sheriff reflect that the trip to Johnson's Wrecker took place on July 16th of 2008?
That it's reflected on the sheriff's office paperwork.
Okay. Did you use that paperwork to refresh your recollection for your testimony here today?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. When you went to that location with Mr. Anthony, was it already dark out?
Yes, ma'am.
How did you gain access to Johnson's Wrecker?
The gate was closed. We had to call the number that was on the gate. One of the drivers, by the last name, I believe Hudon or something like that, opened the gate for us, and that's how we gained entry into the Johnson's Towing area.
Did you identify yourself as being with the Orange County Sheriff's Office in order to gain access?
Yes, I explained to him what we were doing. I also showed him my badge, showing him that I worked for the Orange County Sheriff's Office, and I explained to them the vehicle that was in question, that was with George Anthony, and George Anthony was with me when we were telling him that we needed to get the trash can out of the dumpster, and George Anthony knew what dumpster it was.
Okay. Were you able to gain access to this dumpster then at that point?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you have a camera with you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. If I may have what's been marked as states X for identification. Ma'am, can you see on your screen X for identification?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you recognize what's shown there?
Yes.
What do you recognize it to be?
It's the trash can that we, the dumpster where we went.
Okay. There is a month, day, and year associated with that photograph. Is that accurate?
Yes, ma'am.
Was that photograph taken prior to your gaining any access to the interior of the dumpster?
Yes. We went in, well, I apologize. We went in through the gate, and before we started looking inside the trash can, I took a picture of the dumpster.
Okay. Is that photograph a fair and accurate representation then of the exterior of that dumpster on the property of Johnson's Wrecker as of July 16th, 2008?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this point, I would seek to introduce X for identification as the state's next numbered exhibit in evidence.
What says the defense?
No objection, sir.
It will be received in evidence as states numbered.
Permission to publish this item to the jury, Your Honor.
You may publish.
All right, Ms. McBride, it appears that there are sections to the lid to that dumpster.
Yes.
Okay, were those sections of the lid in that position upon your arrival at Johnson's Wrecker?
No.
Okay, how were they situated?
They were closed.
Everything closed?
Yes.
Okay, how did they get opened prior to your taking this picture?
We opened them.
Who's we?
George Anthony, I, and Mr. Hudon.
I'm sorry?
Mr. Hudon, the employee of Johnson's Wrecker.
Okay. Did you touch anything inside the dumpster prior to taking this photograph?
No.
If I may have Y for identification. Ms. McBride, can you see Y for identification?
Yes.
Do you recognize it?
Yes.
What do you recognize it to be?
That is the trash bag that I retrieved. It's the one on your right that has like the pizza box.
Okay. Now, is this photograph taken prior to anyone touching that item?
No, we took the picture first before we removed anything or touched anything.
Okay. You took this picture, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Does the photograph fairly and accurately represent the condition of this bag of trash prior to your removing it from the dumpster?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, at this point, I would seek to introduce Y for identification into evidence as the state's next numbered exhibit.
What says the defense?
No objection, sir.
It will be received in evidence as states numbered.
Permission to publish this item to the jury, Your Honor?
You may publish.
All right, you can actually touch the screen and make marks on it. If you would just circle the item that you were referring to that was ultimately collected. Keep your finger on the screen when you do it. At any point in time, did you open that bag?
No.
Did anyone touch the bag but you?
No, only me. I had gloves on and I put it into a brown paper bag after I retrieved it.
Okay. What did you do with it after retrieval?
We put it in the brown paper bag. I'm sorry. I pulled it. I opened a brown paper bag. I put it in there. I used 2 trash bags, and then I put it in the trunk of my vehicle, my agency vehicle.
Okay. Now, you put the white plastic bag inside a brown paper bag and then put that inside another item?
No, the trash bag was too small, so I wanted to cover the whole bag to preserve the evidence that was inside. So I took the brown paper bag, I put that white bag inside of it, and then I took another brown paper bag and put it over it also, just to conceal that bag.
All right, so you're talking about a double paper bag over this plastic bag.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You said you put it into the trunk
Yes.
of your agency vehicle?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did you access it again?
No, ma'am, until I got to the Orange County Sheriff's Office.
Okay. Was Mr. Anthony in the vehicle with you as you placed the item into your trunk?
Yes.
Okay. Did you allow him to have any access to the bag?
No.
Was he dropped off prior to your return to the Orange County Sheriff's Office?
Yes.
What happened to the item in 75 once you got to the Sheriff's Office?
When I got to the Orange County Sheriff's Office, I walked directly to the forensics unit to meet one of the forensics CSI officers there,
Who?
George Pelosi.
Is that Gerardo Loise?
Yes, Gerardo. Yes.
I'm sure I'm pronouncing it wrong. I always do. Okay. And you turned that over directly to him, is what you're telling us.
Yes.
Okay. Would that have been your last opportunity to have any access to that item?
Yes, I did the property form, handed it over to him, and then Yuri Mellish came down.
Okay.
Corporal Yuri Mellish.
Were you also asked to retrieve another item from the Anthony residence at 4937 Hope Spring Drive, this time on July 17th of 2008?
Yes.
Okay. What item were you asked to retrieve on that date?
A computer tower and a digital camera.
Okay. Do you recall, or do the records of the Orange County Sheriff reflect what time you would have received the items that you described on July 17th of 2008?
The Orange County Sheriff's Office records reflect.
Okay. Do you recall at this point, or do you need the record to refresh your recollection?
If I can see the paperwork, because I don't remember what time it was. I know what items I picked up.
Okay. If I may approach the witness, Your Honor.
You may.
As to the retrieval date and time.
Yes.
Okay. When was that?
That was on the 16th at 12. Sorry. It was, I'm sorry, the 17th at 12:15 of July.
What did you do with those items after you retrieved them?
We brought them to the Orange County Sheriff's Office.
Who is we?
Me and Tanya DePalma.
Okay. Who is Tanya DePalma?
Tanya DePalma was also a missing persons investigator.
Okay. Is that somebody who accompanied you to the Anthony residence to retrieve those items?
Yes.
Are you the person that actually took possession?
Yes.
Would it be accurate to say that the item that you took possession of was a HP Pavilion computer tower Q520N?
Yes.
And the camera was a Polaroid digital camera?
Yes.
What did you do with those items after they were retrieved on July 17th?
We got to the Orange County Sheriff's Office and we gave it to Sergeant John Allen and Corporal Yuri Mellish.
Okay. Did you have contact at that point with Sandra Kahn?
I did not know.
Okay. Would that have been the last opportunity that you would have had to access either of those items?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Your Honor, I have no other questions of this witness at this time.
Cross-examination. May the witness be excused, Ms. Burdick?
Yes, you may.
Thank you, ma'am. You may be excused.
Thank you.
Okay.
You may proceed.
Thank you. Please tell the members of the jury your occupation, ma'am.
I'm a crime scene investigator with the Orange County Sheriff's Office.
Okay. How long have you been employed with the Orange County Sheriff?
A little over 3 years.
What sort of background or education do you have that qualifies you for that position with the sheriff?
I have a Bachelor of Science degree in Forensic Science with a minor in Chemistry from the University of Central Florida.
I'm currently obtaining my Master of Science degree in Criminal Justice from the University of Central Florida, and I'll graduate in August. I've been with the Sheriff's Office for 3 years, and our training program is 4 months long, where we receive extensive training in all the areas of crime scene. I have obtained over 320 hours of additional specialized training in the area of crime scene.
As of July of 2008, how long had you been employed with the sheriff at that point?
I was employed March of 2008, so
Just a few months.
yes.
Were you asked to assist in the collection of some evidence items by Detective Yuri Melich?
Yes, I was.
Okay. If I may approach the witness with these items, Your Honor.
You may.
Let me show you first what has been marked as HQ for identification. The wrong package, but tell me if you can take a look at that and tell me if that item is something that you've had contact with in the past.
No.
Not your initials.
No.
All right, fine. Let me show you some. Yes. On July 21st of 2008, were you asked to go to the Orange County Correctional Facility for the purpose of taking samples from an individual by the name of Caylee Marie Anthony?
Yes, I was.
Okay. What time did you arrive at that facility to achieve that goal?
May I refer to my report?
Will that help refresh your recollection?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, can the witness have permission to refer to the report
Yes, the witness may refer to her report. You may proceed.
for the exact times?
I arrived at the correctional facility at 21:44 hours.
Okay. What was it that you were asked to do there?
I was requested to obtain hair and buccal swab standards from Ms. Anthony.
How was that achieved?
Buccal swabs are achieved, we are provided with sterile cotton swabs. There are 2 swabs per container. And what I did, I requested Ms. Anthony to open her mouth, and I rub aggressively these 2 swabs on the interior of both sides of her cheek for the collection of cheek cells.
Okay. Now, you are demonstrating an item to the jury. That's not the actual item that you used. You're just using that as a demonstrative aid at this point.
Correct.
Okay. When you get there to the facility, you had indicated that those are sterile items that are sealed.
Yes, they are.
Okay. You also take some precaution not to transfer any of your skin cells, or?
That is correct. In obtaining buccal swab standards, I wore gloves and a mask.
Okay. All right, now if I may approach again.
You may.
I have what has been marked as IU and IV for identification. Let's start with IU. Tell me if you recognize that package as something that you've had contact with in the past.
Yes.
And what do you recognize that to be?
These are 2 buccal swabs from the left cheek of Caylee Anthony.
Is that item currently sealed?
Yes, it is.
If you could somehow break the seal, look inside without taking the item out if possible, and tell me if the swabs that you collected are in fact contained inside.
Yes, they are.
How do you know that?
I identify my handwriting and seal on the swab box.
Same as it relates to IV for identification. Have you take a look at the exterior packaging and tell me if you recognize it as something that you've had contact with in the past.
Yes, I do.
How do you recognize it?
This has my handwriting and my initials on the seal.
What is it that is purported to be inside?
Those are 2 buccal swabs from the right cheek of Caylee Anthony.
Is that item currently sealed?
Yes, it is.
Again, if you could break that seal without taking the item out of the packaging if possible, and tell me if you recognize the item inside.
Yes, I do.
How do you recognize it?
This also has my handwriting and my seals.
Once these items are obtained, what do you do with them?
Those items were turned over to lead crime scene investigator Gerardo Bloisy.
Do you seal those prior to turning them over to another individual?
Yes.
Would you have sealed them that same evening?
I believe those have the same date as I collected them, yes.
All right. Do you need to look at the seal to tell us with certainty?
Yes. Yes, the seal on the exterior envelope is the same, July 21st, 2008.
Aside from the swabs of the cheek, did you collect any other evidence item from Caylee Marie Anthony?
Yes, I did.
Okay, what would that have been?
I was requested to also obtain hair standards from Miss Anthony.
Okay, how was that achieved?
Hair standards, according to the FBI protocol, they would like loose hair standards as well as pulled head hair standards. So I requested Miss Anthony first turn her head over and using her fingers retrieve all of the loose head hair. As her head hair fell out, it fell onto a piece of brown paper, and I folded that up, placed that into an envelope, and then I personally pulled Miss Anthony's hair out for the pulled head hair standard.
All right. Now, the brown piece of paper that the loose hair was collected on, where does that come from?
We are supplied in our van a roll of brown paper, and I retrieved it out of my van that evening.
All right. What steps or precautions are taken to ensure that the brown paper that you are utilizing to collect this evidence is not contaminated in any way?
This brown paper is just a large roll that's placed in my van. It's only taken out when needed to be utilized.
Okay. Now, you said that you had Ms. Anthony turn her head over just to collect whatever loose hair could be obtained at that point.
Correct.
If I may approach the witness with IT for identification.
You may.
Have you take a look at that packaging and tell me if it's something you recognize as you're having had contact with in the past.
Yes.
How do you recognize it?
It has my handwriting on it and my initials on the seal with the date.
Do you also indicate on the exterior of the package what item is contained inside?
Yes, I do.
And what is this item?
These are the loose head hair standards from Miss Caylee Anthony.
You had mentioned the seal with the date. Was that item sealed by you on the date that we've been speaking of, July 21st?
Yes, ma'am.
What do you do with this item once you've collected it and placed it into the sealed package?
That was also turned over to lead investigator Gerardo Bloisy.
You mentioned pulled head hair.
Correct.
Okay. How is that done? Like it sounds?
It is. As a crime scene investigator, we're responsible for pulling head hair from multiple areas of the head.
Okay. How do you do that? With some implement?
I initially started with a pair of disposable tweezers, which are for a one-time use only, and those were not working properly, so I physically pulled them with my hands.
Okay. Were you wearing gloves?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Aside from wearing gloves, were there any other steps taken to ensure that you weren't mixing any of your hair or skin cells with this sample that you're collecting from Ms. Anthony?
If I recall, I still had my mask on.
Okay. If I may approach the witness with IS for identification.
You may.
How do you take a look at that item and tell me if you recognize it as something you've had contact with in the past?
Yes.
What do you recognize it to be?
Again, this is my handwriting, and my initials are on the seal with the date.
Do you put some indication on the exterior of the package what is contained inside?
Yes, ma'am.
And what indication have you placed on there?
These are the pulled head hairs from Miss Caylee Anthony.
You indicated that it is currently sealed. Can you tell when you sealed?
Yes, the date of July 21st of 2008 is present on the seal.
What happened after you obtained these samples and sealed the package? What happened to it?
Those were also turned over to lead investigator Gerardo Bloisy.
If I may approach the witness with JC, JD, JE, and JF.
You may.
Identification. Let me have you take a look at JC for identification. Tell Tell me if you recognize that as something that you've had contact with in the past.
Yes, I do.
And how do you recognize it?
This is my handwriting and my initials and date on the seal.
Do you put some indication on the exterior of the package as to what is contained inside?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and what is it?
4 toothbrushes belonging to Caylee Anthony.
Were those items that you obtained from Detective Yuri Melich?
That is correct.
Did you place the item into the package and seal it?
Yes.
Does the seal indicate the date that that was done?
Yes. July 28th, 2008 is on the seal.
Let me show you JD for identification. Tell me if you recognize that as something that you've had contact with in the past.
Yes, I do.
How do you recognize it?
This also has my handwriting and my initials and date on the seal.
Did you put some indication on the exterior of the package as to what item is contained inside?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and what is it?
1 brush belonging to Caylee Anthony.
Is this also an item that you obtained from Detective Yuri Melich?
Yes, it is.
Does your seal appear on the exterior?
Yes.
Did you initial and date that seal as well?
Yes, I did.
Right, and what date did you seal this?
July 28th, 2008.
Let me show you JE for identification. Tell me if you recognize that.
Yes, I do.
What do you recognize it to be?
This is 1 comb belonging to Caylee Anthony.
Comb? I'm sorry,
Yes, 1 comb.
comb. How do you recognize that?
This has my handwriting, my initials, and the date on my seal.
Is that an item that you obtained from Detective Yuri Melich?
Yes, it is.
Okay. What date is reflected on your seal on this package?
July 28th, 2008.
And finally, JF for identification. Do you recognize that item?
Yes, I do.
How do you recognize it?
This has my handwriting, my initials, and the date on the seal.
Do you put some indication on the front of the package as to what is contained inside?
Yes, I did.
And what is it?
1 thermometer belonging to Caylee Anthony.
Is this an item that you retrieved or received from Detective Yuri Melich?
Yes, it is.
Did you place that item into that packaging and seal it?
Yes, I did.
Does the seal reflect the date that you accomplished that?
Yes, July 28th, 2008.
Do you recognize the individual in the courtroom from whom you obtained the cheek swabs and hair, pulled and loose hair samples?
Yes, I do.
Occasion for these purposes.
Okay.
State accepts stipulation.
We will accept the stipulation that the samples that this witness has testified to belong to the defendant, Caylee Marie Anthony.
The record will so indicate.
I have no other questions of this witness, Your Honor. Thank you.
Cross-examination.
May it please court, Mr. Rain Burdick. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
Now, you testified that you wore gloves when collecting a DNA sample. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And that's to protect basically from any epithelial cells that may transfer?
Any type of cross-contamination?
Exactly. And that would include even secondary transfer, would that not? Meaning, if you had touched something that had somebody else's DNA, you could also transfer that DNA to whatever sample you were collecting.
I suppose.
Okay. And you obviously take extraordinary precautions when collecting DNA.
Correct?
And that is because of the extreme sensitivity of DNA and its ability to transfer.
Correct?
And you also wore a mask.
Yes, sir.
And the reason you wear a mask is so you also don't get any further DNA on whatever sample it is that you're collecting.
Correct?
And in fact, you take these precautions. Well, let me actually strike that and say, in fact, while collecting DNA, you don't even speak, do you?
For the most part, we try not to.
And the reason you don't try to speak is because even while speaking, you could contaminate samples.
That's true.
And there have been tremendous advances in DNA, and that's why you take these precautions.
I don't know if it's because of the advancements. We just don't want to cross-contaminate any evidence we collect.
Well, you're aware now that that you don't need tons of blood or anything like that to get DNA on something, right?
Okay.
And you're also aware that low copy number DNA, you're aware with that concept? Familiar with that
Basic concepts?
Yes.
Yes, I'm not a DNA analyst.
I understand. But in the process of collecting DNA, you're also aware of touch DNA.
Correct?
And that's when you touch an item, and that item would contain some type of DNA.
Potentially.
Potentially, yes. And the packaging that you use, it specifically, you have certain procedures as to the packaging because that way it could preserve the DNA.
The DNA that's inside them, yes.
Preserve the integrity of the sample.
Okay.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
Okay. And in fact, if properly packaged, we can go back 20 years later and still be able to collect that DNA potentially.
If the sample's still there, yes. If it hasn't been utilized, the whole thing.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Any redirect?
No redirect, Your Honor. Thank you.
You may proceed.
Thank you. How are you employed, sir?
Orange County Sheriff's Office,
In what capacity?
Crime Scene Investigator Level 2
How long have you been with the Orange County Sheriff's Office?
with the Orange County Sheriff's Office, 11 years.
Have you been a crime scene investigator with that agency for all 11 years?
No, I have previous experience.
Okay. During your 11 years with the Sheriff's Office, what various duties have you performed for them?
For them, I'm doing a crime scene investigator.
Okay. You indicated that you had experience prior to joining the Orange County Sheriff's Office?
Correct.
Okay. Tell us what that is.
I was a police officer in San Juan, Puerto Rico for 6 years. And after that, I was transferred to the Institute of Forensic Science in San Juan, Puerto Rico. And after that, I received trainings in that capacity with the FBI, with the Institute of Forensic Science, and also here in Florida, I have a training with the FBI, with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, with the ATF, and also I have a BA degree in sociology and criminology, and also a master's degree in criminal justice with concentration in business administration.
As a crime scene investigator with the Orange County Sheriff, what are your job responsibilities?
As a crime scene investigator, our responsibility is to process any crime scene via taking notes, photographs, searching, collection, preservation, and submit the evidence to any lab if they needed any kind of lab test. Basically, this is general responsibilities that we have as a crime scene investigator in Sheriff's Office.
All right, so if I understand you correctly, it is the documentation, collection, and preservation of items of evidence.
Correct.
Okay. And from what you've said, you do not perform any analysis typically on evidence items that you've collected?
No,
Okay. Were you employed in this capacity with the Orange County Sheriff on July 16th of 2008?
yes,
On that date, did you receive a Pontiac Sunfire,
yes,
a 1998 white two-door vehicle, Florida tag G63XV?
that is correct.
How did that come into your possession?
That particular vehicle came to my possession through Detective Beasley.
Charity Beasley?
Correct.
How did it come to you? Did it arrive on some sort of transport vehicle?
Correct. That was transported by a towing service truck at the forensic garage.
Once it arrived at the forensic garage of the Orange County Sheriff, where does it go?
Goes to the forensic garage bay.
In what condition did it arrive?
The vehicle arrived in good condition. I observed that the vehicle, all the doors of the driver's and passenger side trunk was sealed.
If I may have D for identification, which I believe is already admitted as 47. 47 in evidence. May I publish to the jury during witness's testimony?
You may.
Investigator Bloise, do you recognize what has been previously admitted into evidence as states 47?
Yes,
What do you recognize it to be?
is the vehicle with tag number G63X Victor.
Right. You had mentioned that this vehicle arrived in the forensic garage or arrived at your facility and was placed in the forensic garage with seals. Can you show us on that photograph what you're referring to? And you can touch the screen to assist you.
Okay,
It's a telestrator.
this area and this area.
If I may have 48 in evidence, permission to publish this item during the testimony as well.
You may publish.
Investigator Blaise, do you recognize 48 in evidence?
Yes,
And what do you recognize that to be?
is the vehicle that I received on July 16, 2008, is a Sunfire Pontiac white vehicle.
All right, you mentioned the seals as it relates to the trunk portion of the vehicle. Was the hood
Correct.
likewise sealed? Can you show us that item in the photograph? If I may have 49 in evidence. That would be F, yes. Okay. Permission to publish this item, Your Honor.
You may publish.
Investigator Blaise, do you recognize 49 in evidence?
Yes,
And what do you recognize that to be?
is the vehicle white Sunfire Pontiac that I received on July 16, 2008, and the vehicle doors is sealed at the driver's side.
All right, is that this item?
Correct.
Aside from receiving the vehicle, did you also obtain evidence items from Detective Beasley?
Yes.
Okay. Were these evidence items contained within a black plastic garbage bag?
Yes.
If I may approach the clerk.
Right?
I may have N. Let me show you NN for identification. Tell me if you recognize the packaging of that item.
Yes, I do.
Okay. How do you recognize it?
So recognized because I have my hand letters and have the day and the time that I collected from the evidence Q78.
Was this the bag that contained the evidence items given to you by Detective Beasley?
Correct. It's a black plastic bag with yellow handle. Yes, it is.
Were you also given a blue plastic crate?
Yes.
Did the bag and the crate contain a doll,
Correct.
a child's backpack,
Correct.
a child's toothbrush,
Correct.
black leather bag,
Correct.
various paper items,
Correct.
and plastic clothes hangers?
Correct.
Now, Investigator Bloise, given the length of service with the Orange County Sheriff and the prior experience that you've described with the police agency in Puerto Rico, have you had the opportunity to come into contact with individuals who are deceased?
Yes.
Have you had the opportunity to smell the odor of human decomposition?
Yes.
How often or how regularly would you have been in a position to smell this?
In my experience in Puerto Rico and here, can say about 30, 40, 45 times. And sometimes I have to go to the medical examiner's office in order to get fingerprints from decomposed bodies sometimes, and I have that kind of encounter with that type of conditions.
All right. Have you had experience with bodies at varying levels of decomposition?
Oh, yes, I do.
As a result of your employment with the Orange County Sheriff and your prior experience, have you also had the opportunity to search for evidence in places such as dumpsters
Yes,
or the landfill?
yes,
Did you break the seal on this Pontiac Sunfire when it arrived at the Orange County Sheriff?
yes, when I opened the driver's door.
All right. Is that the first seal that you broke, the driver's side door?
Yes, that was the first one.
Okay. And what were your observations upon breaking the seal?
My observations, when I opened the driver's side, I immediately smell odor of decomposition coming from inside the car.
Is the interior portion of the car the first part of the vehicle that you began to document and/or process?
That was the first one, correct.
All right. What's the first thing you do to document the
The first,
condition of?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
What is the first thing you do to document the condition of this piece of evidence?
As soon as I receive the vehicle, the first things that I document is photograph the vehicle exterior of the vehicle and the condition that I received the vehicle. And the second is to photograph the interior of the vehicle. And then documented what I observed through my reports.
All right. Well, in connection with your documentation of any particular evidence item, you take notes.
Correct.
You then utilize those notes to write a report so that you can recall the steps that you've taken as it relates to various pieces of evidence, correct?
Correct.
If I may have G for identification. At some point in time, did you attempt to determine whether or not the gas gauge on this vehicle was working properly?
Correct.
How did you determine that?
What I did in this case, I just photographed the vehicle and the instrumental panel, the way that I receive it. And after that, I put some gasoline in the vehicle and then turn on the ignition of the vehicle to see the needle of the gasoline gauge level. And that way, I photographed it.
All right. Now, this process occurred later on, several
Correct.
months after you initially received the vehicle, correct?
That was correct.
Okay. Did you make a determination as to whether or not the gas gauge was in proper working order on the vehicle?
Yes, was working properly.
All right. And did you photograph the end result of your attempt to determine whether or not the gauge was in proper working order?
Correct.
All right. Does states G for identification accurately reflect the photograph of the end of that process?
Correct.
Your Honor, at this point in time, I would seek to introduce G for identification into evidence as the state's next numbered exhibit.
What says the defense?
No objections.
It be received in evidence as
And permission to publish briefly, Your Honor.
you may publish.
All right. May I have H for identification, which has been previously admitted as states 50 in evidence? Okay. Investigator Bloise? Bloise?
Loisy, yes.
Do you see states 50 in evidence?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
Permission to publish, Your Honor?
You may publish.
Was this photograph taken on July
16.
16th?
Correct. That is the interior of the vehicle, showing the driver's front seat and the driver's seat area.
May I have I for identification, which has been previously admitted as 34. Permission to publish that item. Do you see the item?
Yes.
Okay. What is it that you are documenting?
In that area was sunglasses and black CD case and a brown bell.
May I have J for identification, which has been previously admitted as states 35 in evidence? And permission to publish that item, Your Honor.
You may publish.
Was this photograph also taken on July 16th?
Correct.
And what is it that you're documenting through the use of photography here?
That area is the rear side of the inside the vehicle, showing the baby car seat and pairs of shoes, black pairs of shoes on the seat.
Okay. If I may have K for identification. Do you recognize that item?
Yes,
What is it that you are attempting to document through the use of photography?
it is mid-frame photos that we call mid-range, and it's a picture of the baby car seat.
Okay. Does that photograph fairly and accurately reflect the condition of the Sunfire on July 16th of 2008 as you were documenting its condition?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, at this point, I would seek to introduce K for identification into evidence as the state's next numbered exhibit.
No objections.
It be received in evidence as states numbered.
Permission to publish this item briefly.
You may publish.
All right, if I may have states L for identification, which has been previously admitted as 51, I believe. Permission to publish this item since it's already in evidence, Your Honor.
You may publish.
Investigator Bloise, what is it that you are documenting through the use of photography in 51 in evidence?
That would be the seat area, the rear side, and showing two pairs of shoes, female, one black, the other one is like a gold brown, and air freshener sheet that was found in that area of the vehicle.
Right. Are you referring to the item that I have attempted to circle?
That is correct.
Okay. Based on your experience, well, I don't know if you do laundry. Do you know that to be a dryer sheet?
Yes.
Okay. If I may have M for identification. Hold on. Okay, go ahead. Do you recognize what is shown in M for identification?
Yes.
What do you recognize that to be?
That is the underneath of the vehicle that I put on the lift in the forensic garage.
Okay. Does that photograph fairly and accurately reflect the condition of the bottom or the underside of the vehicle on July 16th, 2008, or shortly thereafter?
It is, yes.
Okay, Your Honor, at this point, I would seek to introduce M for identification into evidence.
What says the defense?
No objections.
Be received in evidence as states numbered.
Permission to publish this item to the jury, Your Honor.
You may publish.
Detective Bloise, Investigator Bloise, excuse me, did you determine whether or not there were any foreign substances on the underside of the vehicle?
Yes, I did some inspection on the underneath of the vehicle.
And what were your findings upon inspection?
What I found on the vehicle was a dry leaf near to the transmission area, and the other one was a dry leaf nearest to the front, if I remember, chassis area of the front tire, and that is my observations at that moment underneath of the vehicle, a dry leaf too.
All right. Were you able to determine whether or not there were any animal parts
No,
on the underside of the vehicle?
no.
You were not able to determine, or there were not any
There are
visible?
not any kind of animal parts underneath of the vehicle.
May I have N for identification? Do you see N for identification?
Yes,
Okay. What is it that you're documenting there through the use of photography?
that is a mid-train photo, and is the trunk inside the vehicle.
Does that fairly and accurately reflect the condition of the trunk of the vehicle upon your receipt of it?
Yes,
Okay. Your Honor, at this point, I would seek to introduce N for identification into evidence.
What says the defense?
No objection, sir.
You received an evidence as states numbered.
Permission to publish, Your Honor.
You may publish.
Investigator Bloisy, there is an item near the center that appears to have been removed. What is that?
that was one of the part of the spare tire cover well. It was a plastic that hold the spare tire cover well. It's a plastic.
This item
Correct.
here is the plastic. Did
Correct.
you remove it from the hole that appears next to it?
Yes.
When you received the vehicle, was the plastic cover on the hole?
Yes.
May I have O for identification? Do you see O for identification displayed on the screen in front of you?
Yes.
Okay. Did you place markers into the trunk of the vehicle to assist you in documenting and identifying items contained within the trunk?
Yes.
Right. Does this photograph fairly and accurately depict the condition of the trunk once you've placed those markers inside?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this point, I would seek to introduce O for identification into evidence.
No objections, Judge.
We received an evidence that states numbered.
Permission to publish, Your Honor?
You may publish.
Investigator Bloisy, the marker A that is seen inside the trunk, what is it that you are demonstrating through the use of this marker?
That was the description of the dry sheet or air freshener sheet, letter A. And the second one will be letter B, which is a residue of dirt that I found inside the trunk.
Is this a different dryer sheet than was in the rear seat of the vehicle?
Correct.
Okay, and you are referring to the item that I've circled in red?
Correct.
Okay. You discussed dirt residue. Are you referring to the item that I've circled in red here?
Correct.
May I have P for identification? Do you recognize P for identification?
Yes.
And what do you recognize it to be?
It's the back area of the spare tire cover well.
All right, at this point, has it been removed from the vehicle?
Yes.
Now, did your processing of this vehicle take several days?
Correct.
Was there a section of this spare tire cover that was removed prior to this photograph being taken?
Correct.
Does it then fairly and accurately depict the condition of the reverse side of the spare tire cover once the section had been removed?
Correct.
Your Honor, at this point, I would seek to introduce P for identification into evidence.
No objections.
Be received in evidence. It states numbered.
Permission to publish?
May publish.
The,
Until 3, we'll take our mid-afternoon recess.
yes, sir. The section that was removed is that the area that I've circled?
Correct.
Okay. What is the material that comprises this spare tire cover? What's it made out of?
It's like kind of wood, and in the back is carpet, and the front is carpet and wood. Yeah.
Okay. May I have Q for identification? Can you see Q?
Yes.
Let me take that off of there. What do you recognize to be shown in Q?
It is the inside of the trunk and showing in letter C the area that was the spare tire cover well. And at the same time, there's a description of the dry leaf that I observed in the trunk area.
All right. Does this photograph fairly and accurately depict the condition of that portion of the trunk after you have removed some items from it?
Correct.
All right. Your Honor, at this point in time, I would seek to introduce Q for identification into evidence.
No objections, Judge.
Be received in evidence. It states numbered.
Permission to publish this, Your Honor?
You may publish.
All right, Investigator Bloise, you had referenced C as a marker on this photograph. Can you explain again what it is that you are showing?
Basically, it's the dry leaf.
Overrule.
Go ahead.
It's basically the dry leaf that I observed in the trunk area.
The what?
A dry leaf. This
Oh.
area here, right there.
Yes, sir. All right. Now, was the spare tire with the vehicle when you received it?
Correct.
Let me clear that. Where would the spare tire be sitting prior to its removal?
In this area.
All right. In an earlier photograph, you were describing the spare tire cover being made out of some wood board and carpet.
Correct.
Would that sit on top of this section of the trunk in the manner that you've indicated with the blue mark?
Correct.
Is it 250?
Okay, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we're going to take our mid-afternoon recess. We will recess until 3:05. Please remember all of my previous admonitions, including but not limited to discussing the case among yourselves. Any additional instructions on behalf of the state of Florida or the defense?
No, Your Honor.
We'll be in recess. All right. State recognized persons of the jury.
Yes, Your Honor.
The defense.
Yes, sir, we do.
You may continue.
Thank you. May I have R for identification, please? Investigator Blaise, do you recognize what is shown in R for identification?
Yes.
And what do you recognize it to be?
It is the trunk area when I removed the liner from the trunk.
I'm sorry?
Is the inside the trunk area.
Once you've done what to it?
Once I removed the liner from the trunk area.
Okay. Does this photograph fairly and accurately depict that you've described?
Correct.
Your Honor, at this point, I would seek to introduce R for identification into evidence.
Be received in evidence as states numbered.
And permission to publish.
You may publish.
Investigator, what is it that you are attempting to show or document through photography in this exhibit?
I tried to document the condition of the trunk area and the metal area of the floor when I removed the liner from the trunk.
All right. Is the tire removed as well?
Correct.
If I may have S for identification? Do you recognize what's shown in S?
Yes.
What is it?
It is the liner of the trunk when I removed from the vehicle.
Okay, you took the whole liner out of the Pontiac and took it somewhere else.
Yeah, to the forensic lab.
Okay. Does this photograph fairly and accurately depict the condition of that liner once it is removed from the vehicle?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this point, I would seek to introduce S for identification into evidence as the state's next numbered exhibit.
No objections.
Be received in evidence as states numbered.
Permission to publish that item, Your Honor?
You may publish.
Investigator Blaise, can you explain to the jury what we're looking at?
We're looking at right now of the trunk area, the liner, and then I place two yellow markers, one with a letter L, the other one is with the letter R, which means the left side, to show you the left side of the liner and the right side of the liner. I'm the spare tire cover, well.
All right. Are you referring to this area of the liner as the spare tire cover?
Correct.
Okay. Is it one continuous piece of either carpet or fabric that covered the trunk at one time?
Yes.
Okay. If I may have T for identification. Investigator Blaise, do you recognize what is shown in T?
Yes.
And what is it that you are attempting to depict through the use of photography in this exhibit?
That will be the left side of the trunk area. Should be the left area, shown with pointer 12, which would be the left side of the trunk of the liner of the vehicle.
All right. Is the 12 intended to signify anything in particular?
Yes, the pointer number 12, when I inspected the vehicle, I observed what appears to be a human hair.
Does this photograph accurately depict that section of the liner as you found it, and then place the indicator 12?
Correct.
Your Honor, at this point, I would seek to introduce T for identification into evidence.
No objections, Your Honor.
We received an evidence that states numbered.
Permission to publish?
You may publish.
All right. You indicate that the 12 is intended to show a human hair.
Correct.
Is that a single human hair?
Yes.
All right. Did you take a photograph, a close-up photograph of this section of the trunk liner in an attempt to actually capture the hair?
Yes.
If I may have you for identification. Do you see you for identification?
Yes.
Okay. Is this a close-up photograph of that section?
That is correct. That is the close-up that I tried to get the photograph of the hair.
All right. Does that photograph fairly and accurately depict the close-up of the single human hair that you were attempting to depict?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this point, I would seek to introduce you for identification into evidence.
What says to the defense?
No objections, Judge.
We received an evidence that states numbered.
All right, and permission to publish this item.
You may publish.
Detective Bloisy, Investigator Bloisy, 86 in evidence. There's a red item shown in the photograph. What is that?
Correct. That was what appears to be a red fiber that I observed in that area on the left side of the trunk. And in that area, you can see part of the hair that was over that particular fabric in this area right here. You can see the hair right there.
Okay, can you take us along the length of the hair as you observed it there on the trunk liner?
Yes, most likely this is the long of the hair, approximately.
All right, if I may have S, or what's been introduced as 84. May I publish this item to the jury, Your Honor, for this
May.
portion of the testimony? Investigator, can you show us where that hair was located in relation to the rest of the trunk liner that is shown in 84 in evidence?
Should be in this area.
Did that come up? I didn't double check to see if that was published. Okay. Okay, the area in blue is where you,
Yeah, approximately in this area right here.
all right. If I may have V for identification. You had testified earlier that you received other evidence items from Charity Beasley,
Correct.
Detective Charity Beasley. If I could direct your attention to what has already been introduced into evidence as, I believe, 52. May I publish that item to the jury, Your Honor? Were these evidence items that were given to you by Detective Beasley?
Correct.
What did you do with those upon receipt?
When I received the items, I inspected and then I secured in my evidence locker.
Did you ultimately package those items in some fashion?
Yes, I put especially the whole crate with all the items in a box.
If I may have W for identification. This has previously been admitted as 53 in evidence. Permission to publish to the jury, Your Honor.
May publish.
Is this an item that you collected from Detective Beasley as well and then photographed?
Correct.
Okay. And what did you do with it after you received it?
I did a picture of the backpack, the interior of the backpack, and then proceed to preserve it.
Aside from the item depicted in marker number 12, did you collect other evidence items from the trunk over the course of several days?
Yes, I collected some more hair from the trunk and their residue, the air freshener sheet, and then I preserve it.
All right. If I may have, this is going to be an item with the clerk, IB for identification. If I may approach the witness with IB for identification.
You may.
All right, approaching you with IB for identification. Can you take a look at the exterior packaging and tell me if you recognize it as something that you've had contact with in the past?
Yes.
And how is it that you recognize that item?
Have my initial on it, have the tag number of the evidence, which is H52025, the time that I collected, 1447 hours, the day that I collected, 7/17/08, and then the description of the evidence, which is a hair, and the location that I collected, which was the front edge of the trunk vehicle, tag G63XV, and have my name on it, and my handwriting.
Is this a different hair than the one that we saw in the trunk connected with the pointer 12.
That is correct, it's different.
And where was this one collected from?
This one was collected from the front edge of the trunk of the vehicle. When I opened the trunk, I observed the hair on the edge of the trunk, and I proceeded immediately to photograph it and collect it as evidence.
Did you collect this by hand or by the use of some other process?
In this kind, the hair, what I did is I photographed it, I collected using a tweezer with magnifier. I have an example here, if you allow me to show the jurors, there's no problem with that. Yes.
We'll get to that
Okay.
at the appropriate point. This, once it is sealed by you,
Correct.
what happens to it?
And then what I did is I seal it, preserve it, and submit it to evidence. Submit it to evidence. To evidence, yes, to the lab.
If I may have IC for identification. Showing you IC for identification. Tell me if you recognize the packaging as something you've had contact with in the past.
Yes, I recognize the package.
What indication is there on the package that you recognize?
It have my name on it, and then the day that I collected, 7/17/2008, 1440 hours. And I collected from inside the trunk of the vehicle, G63X Victor is an air freshener sheet or dry sheet collected from the trunk area.
Had we seen a photograph of this earlier?
Yes,
Is this associated with the placard with B?
correct.
If I may have HT for identification. For counsel, this is Article 4. Article 4, counsel. If I may approach the witness. Have you take a look at this item and tell me if you recognize it as something you've had contact with in the past?
Yes, I recognize the package.
And what do you recognize it?
Have the name on the package, and then the day that I collected, 7/17/2008 at 16 hours, and the location collected was inside the trunk, the vehicle G63X Victor, X-ray Victor, and from the floor, and was a Petri dish containing dirt particles with hair. That would be item number 4, tag number H52025.
Once you collect this, do you seal it and place it into this envelope?
Correct.
You had mentioned that this was collected at a certain time,
Yeah, 16 hours.
1600 or?
1600s at 4.
Okay. All right, if I may have HX and HV, page 8 of the report. May I have continuing permission to come to witness with these items? Let me show you HV for identification first.